Welcome into Jets post-game overtime, an exclusive live stream on SNY.TV. Jonas Schwartz alongside Ray Lucas and Willie Colon. Those guys will be heading out there. Full report card from the game. Much more analysis of the Jets' 23-0 loss to the Denver Broncos to fall to 5-8 on the season. And we will hear from Muhammad Wilkerson, who was asked about what he feels his future is with the Jets. Should be interesting. Let us begin with the offense. Ray, what grade did you give the offense?
F. 313 on third down, under 100 yards total. What else? I don't have to say anything else. It was awful today on the Jets side. And, you could point your fingers at the offensive line, but I think as a whole unit, they dropped a lot of passes, number one. Couldn't run the football, couldn't protect the quarterback. Quarterback didn't protect the football. It was a whole ton of Fs, Willie, right there on that grade.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback you and give you another. Say, hey, they got an F. Listen, Josh McCown was 12 for 6, one interception. They were 3 for 13 on 13, like Ray said. They had one fumble. They were sacked 4 times. They only had 41 yards in the first half. It was just a bad day all around. The time of possession was 22 minutes compared, I think, to the Denver. They had 30-plus minutes. So, listen, I don't like giving Fs, but you got to call a spade, which I try to do. I try to come up here, not just be honest with myself, but I try to remind myself I was a ball player. But today, this wasn't the green and white pride we used to seeing. You
mentioned Denver, 37-35 time of possession, Jets 22-25. The big story offensively in this game was Josh McCown leaving with a broken left hand. His season is in jeopardy as of the moment we're doing this. The Jets are awaiting further tests. Ray, what's your reaction to what's gone on here now with Josh McCown and where the Jets turn from here?
Well, it's easy. It's a next man up philosophy. It always has been. Even when I played 10 years ago, it was that way. But the Jets have lost something major on offense. They've lost a leader. They've lost class. They've lost a guy who has character, who puts it all out there. I think Josh McCown was the MVP of this offense. I mean, me and Willie probably been saying that since, I don't know, week 12.
Definitely today.
Yeah, definitely today. But again, all the questions now can be answered about Bryce Petty, Christian Hackenberg. Bryce Petty will start, and the head coach said that if Josh can't go. But it's a really tough time for me anyway, because Josh McCown has really grown on me a lot this year.
Yeah, this is that time of year a lot of guys are getting dinged. You got, Brian Winters got nicked. He went down early. Listen, Josh went down. He's going to be a big blow. Like Ray said, he's not only a great character and a great man, but he's a field general. He gets a lot of guys and a lot of people in the right places, and he makes a lot of key throws. Not having him out there is going to hurt him.
All right, let's move on to the defense. Willie, what grade you giving the defense?
I gave him an F again, and I know that's hard to believe, but listen, they had 0 turnovers. It's one thing to keep looking at the offense and saying, hey, we just got to wait for a big score. But on the defense side of the ball, you got to try to get turnovers if you're in a rut. You got to try to get after the quarterback. They only had 2 sacks on the day, but this is supposed to be a defense led by Leonard Williams and Mo Wilkinson. Mo did have a sack today. But they have to put pressure on an average quarterback. Trevor Siemian was an average. He's an average quarterback in the NFL. For him to have the type of day he had, and you got to understand, even though Demaryius Thomas, he had a big day. He had eight receptions for 93 yards, 11.6 on the average. But Emmanuel Sanders didn't have a big day. Imagine if he would have went off. Imagine C.J. Anderson would have went off. So the Jets honestly got off luckily because they have pieces on that Denver offense that could have really turned this thing upside down. But the defense, valid, DeMario had a decent day, but it's not about one guy. As a whole, they didn't play well.
Ray?
F. Listen, Trevor Siemian in the last 5 games has 9 picks. In the last 3 games, he has 6 picks. And they had no pressure on Trevor Siemian at all one day. There wasn't a bad throw there on Trevor Siemian where you were like, ooh, he's going to force this one down the field. Coverage was not good on the backside at all. Mo Claiborne had a really, really tough day. But like I said before, where are all the other guys? Where's Coney Ely on the one side? Where's Lance Bass on the other side? I mean, we need guys to start stepping up that aren't the guys that everybody looks at and says, well, they didn't play good, so the Jets lost today. This is a team sport. And Willie just said it before. There's 11 guys on the field at one time. And it doesn't come down to Maurice Claiborne having a tough game against a Pro Bowl wide receiver. What it comes down to is this group as a whole is not getting the job done. And that's why they got an F today.
All right. Muhammad Wilkerson, of course, a big part of this team. A lot of people wondering about his future, big contract and everything else. And so he was asked about it out in Denver. Here's Muhammad Wilkerson with the media.
There was a report in the Daily News that the team's done with you after this year. What do you think about that?
You got to talk to Todd about that. I don't have nothing to say about that.
You want to be back next year?
Talk to Todd about that. I don't have nothing to say about it.
Thank you, everyone. All right, so interesting stuff. People have been speculating all year about what his future was. Willie, what's your reaction to what you just saw?
Well, I think Mo, he's frustrated. I think he expects more of himself. But on the flip side, like we just mentioned, a lot of Mo's issues is caused by Mo. It's self-inflicted. He can and should be able to change not showing up to meeting on times or maybe not being on time, whatever the case may be. But as far as referring everything to Todd, he's like, listen, he can only do what he does. His fate, if it's already written or not, is irrelevant. Todd is the guy. So is Mike McCagnon. So I agree with him. Why put extra nonsense in the papers? You got questions? You got Todd Bowles. Send it to him.
Right.
I agree with Willie. I mean, it's not nothing for him to do. He's not making the choice. That's Mike McCagnon and Todd Bowles sitting down at the end of the season saying, what are we doing? Yeah. Are we going to save some money, or are we going to keep paying this guy money that he's not performing? And the fact is that Mo has played so good before where he changed games by himself. And it just hasn't been that way since he's gotten paid. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a legitimate question. But it's not one that Mo has to answer. Right. It's above his head. It's above his pay grade, so to speak.
All right, let's move on to the special teams. Continue on with the grades. Ray, what grade you give the special teams?
I give him an F. You got -1 yards in punt returns. They got a 37.9 yard average. This is the NFL. That's not good enough, especially changing field positions and stuff like that. And here's the other part of it. There's no splash plays, and there really hasn't been on this side of the football for quite some time. You want to point out the offense, you could point out the defense, but you know what? It's time to start pointing out the special teams as well, because they're not doing anything spectacular to change the game. If you got both sides of the ball not playing well, you need your special teams unit to block a punt, Willie, change field position, give me a kickoff return run back, something to help this team get out of the funk. And they didn't do it, so they get an F from me.
And dealt with an injury to long snapper Thomas Hennessy.
Oh, I was just going to say that. The long snapper gets knocked out. You could talk about Canlazero Valley. He's been great at times, but also he's been inconsistent. They have yet to return anything back for a touchdown. And Ray hit it on the head. It's easy to point fingers on the special teams. Listen, the defense is not responding. The offense is responsive. Can we get a punt block? Can we run something? Can we do something to change the momentum of the game? They have yet to do that this year, and I'm going to give them an F, too.
All right. And certainly, let's move on to the coaching staff. Again, a rough day for this whole team in general. Willie, what grade you giving the coaching staff?
I'm going to give them an F because I feel like I've been redundant. And I've seen this time after time. And I'm watching this offense who becomes stagnant. They don't start fast. And it's the same old thing. I understand you got to be committed to the script. But if you see you come out of halftime, I've watched the great teams like the Steelers and Patriots. When they're down coming out of halftime, they're going no huddle. They're putting the pressure on the defense. They're not going to let the defense dictate how they're going to play the game. They weren't. At times, I watched Bowles. It looks like, I'm not going to say he's not invested, but sometimes you just want him to say, hey, you know what? We got to change it up. You got to adjust. The game of football, all the great coaches like Belichick and all the powers to be who go down in the books, they adjust, and they adjust well. And so right now, I'm tired of watching the same thing in the second half. I'm tired of watching the dead offense that's looking for the answer, and that relies on the coaches. So I'm giving them F.
Right.
Well, I said in pregame that adjustments in the NFL either can win you games or can lose you games. And Willie hit it right on the head for me. Offensively, you come out and you stink so bad. Where's the no huddle? Do something different to change it up. There's one thing you can't do against a Denver defense is run laterally. In the beginning of the sticks, you had that a ton of times, again, where you put yourself behind the sticks. Again, and you look at the defensive side of the football, and they're playing Trevor Seferian. They're not playing Joe Montana. The guy had so many picks in the last 5 games, you got to think you got to get some. So what does that mean to me? Pressure. Go get after the quarterback. Bring an extra guy when they don't have him in the box. Listen, are you going to put corners out there on an island? This has been the whole year for the New York Jets. So to me, coaching today is just as much to blame for this loss as the players.
So your grade?
F.
I'm just trying to get around to that part.
There you go.
Let's also mention before we go, Jets New Orleans next week. Willie, the Westhoff Bowl as we're calling it. How do you listen? Jets have struggled on the road this year. How do you turn the page on not only what is a tough loss in Denver, but also potentially, and we're still waiting to find out more about McCown, an injury that changes your whole quarterback picture for the rest of the year?
Well, they got to be able to, let this soak in and understand that you cannot have this type of production on the road. New Orleans is a team that can put up points, and they can put it up fast, and they can get out of control like a wildfire. So if they don't get their heads on right and they don't come out with an attitude and the chip on the shoulder that we know they can play with, that game is going to get ugly. So they're going to have to go out there with a sense of urgency, a sense of pride, and fight from the opening whistle. And if they're able to do that, they will be fine. The problem with the New York Jets is they play down to their competition, but they play up to their competition. So hopefully next Sunday we see a New York Jets that we expect them to be.
For me, sometimes when a leader goes down, as important as Josh McCown is, you regroup and you get behind the guy that's behind center. That means Bryce Petty. It just so happens that other people elevate their game a little bit in support of Bryce Petty. It happened to me. Listen, I was never one of those great quarterbacks, but when you got Curtis Martin and, Richie Anderson standing behind me, a nasty offensive line in front of you, Winker Bett and Keyshawn Johnson outside, Bryce Petty has that kind of talent around him. He just has to do stuff to not lose the game and throwing interceptions and taking care of the football. Well, that's a big part of it for him. So I'm looking to see the Jets respond. And I mean that in a big, grand word is they have to come out and have some fight. They have to come out and have what Willie calls that killer instinct, where you want to step on somebody's throat right from the start. You know what I'm saying? We lost a coin toss today. It was a complete and total utter loss for the New York Jets. I want to win a damn coin toss. How about that, to start out with?
I totally understand where you're
coming
from.
I want to win a damn coin toss, Jonas.
And trivia.
Oh,
look what I did right there.
It's even, Jonas.
Yes, Air 5-7-7.
All right, we got to wrap it up there. Thank you for tuning.
That's how you going to end on the show like
that?
Yes.
Best post game overtime.
That bus coming in, he just ran me over with.
No.
I'm captain now.
Bookmark, SNY.TV, JetsBlog.com for more coverage of today's game. Catch the podcast Tuesday.
That was the second time.
For Willie
Jonas
Ray,
just ran me over.
I'm Jonas Schwartz.
Good God, Jonas the bus driver.
Why, you're tired.
Wow.
What am I running over? You're tired.
Wow.